Welcome to the Software People Stories. I'm Shiv.
I'm Chitra.
And I'm Gayatri.
We bring you interesting, untold stories of people
Associated with the creation
or consumption of software-based solutions.
You'll hear stories of what worked
and sometimes what didn't.
You will also hear very personal experiences
and insights that would trigger your thoughts
and inspire you to do even greater things. In today's episode, we are going to hear from Sathyanarayanan Vijayaraghavan, who's a founder and CEO at Adept Labz or Ajira.Tech, as well as CASA Retail AI. He is a serial entrepreneur who has been in the entrepreneurial journey from 2016, and he's sharing his profound learnings and what to do and what not to do. And he also shares his various decisions that he's taken through his career. And he also talks about how he started dabbling with computers right at the age of 11, and how he's deepened his learning in problem solving, business architectures, as well as technical enterprise architecture. Sat also covers how he's always stayed true to building products, building cutting edge technology, and staying with that whole concept of decisions that are apt to further that passion. Also, he shares nuggets of wisdom for founders as well as entrepreneurs and what it takes to succeed. Listen on. Hi, Sat. Welcome to Software People Stories. Warm welcome to you and looking forward to a fantastic conversation with you, Sat.
Hi, Gayatri. Thanks for hosting me. I'll be happy to share my experience so far, and it's continuing. So it's not that we have actually gone past the startup journey into somebody who's been very successful, still going through the part of the journey.
We actually interview people across all the realms, Sat. We want to understand what works, what doesn't, what are the learnings, and what are the challenges, right? I think that's what makes it very unique, our podcast. So, in your own words, would you like to start, share your introduction?
Sure, absolutely. So my name is Sathyanarayanan, I go by Sat. So Gayatri and I used to work together when we were at ThoughtWorks. That was my last gig before joining, before starting my own startup. So, and I think Gayatri is doing something on her own as well. So you can say something about the culture and the earlier company that we were in. Very sweet memories about our time at ThoughtWorks. 20 odd years experience, which I'm sure you can guess it. I do have a lot of gray hair and no hair. So, worked across the globe, in US and Europe. Worked predominantly on the retail sector, but also on health tech, on insurance space, financial sector, and so on. Done software development, consulting, strategy consulting roles, management roles in the past. And then in 2015, late 2014, I quit ThoughtWorks, and then early 2015 started Ajira. That was my first startup. So 2021, so by God's grace, we actually did reasonably well. We built an extremely strong team of technologists that could help deliver complex software. So whenever the needs are very complex, the end result should be simple to the users, but the software itself, there is a lot of engineering behind it. Now we kind of wanted to be the go-to team, and we kind of built that type of team. And by 2021 October, did an exit, and then wanted to focus on our own product. That is a second startup that is currently in motion. So, 2021 end, we started focusing fully on the product as such. We were going to get funded and then didn't come to valuation terms. So, now back to being bootstrapped. So the second startup as a bootstrap is what we are currently doing.
Wow, excellent, Sat. So I'm going to start from the beginning. So what got you passionate about software? I know you've held several roles, including being the general manager in ThoughtWorks and being a CEO for Ajira. What propels you in terms of what do you think about it as a passion? What moves you?
So to tell you honestly, I just fell in love with computers. Seriously, this is not cliche, though it sounds very cliched. I fell in love with computers when I was in my sixth, seventh standard. I've been coding since then, by the way. So with the
Wow.
early 64 MB, machines, and that was the state of the machines at that time. And all we had access to was basic and Fox Pro, that type of stuff. I'm kind of giving out my age as well. So as I already said, gray hair and no hair. So started developing with those types of systems at that point in time. I was a developer, still am actually. Still, I do participate in our product development activities over here, on and off. Not all the time, but on and off. But it's essentially so it started out as a love for coding, and then it became more in terms of can I help solve a really good problem that will cause good impact through tech skills, and that drives me the most. Right. So, is it a good problem to solve? And this is one of the learnings I had over the years. When you truly feel the urge to solve problems, customers see through it rather than trying to make a sale. And that's helped me in good stead all through the years. When you're actively solving a customer's problem, right? Not just to make a sale.
Wow. So right from sixth standard, you've been coding, is it? At least
Yeah.
dabbling with computers. So what is that early memory of saying, you want to be in the software space? Any early memories that you have, Sata? Because I know when we joined the workforce, this is one of the lucrative professions, if you will. But the reason why we have stayed here, I know quite a few of my colleagues have gone to farming, banking, and a lot of other areas. Right? What has made that dream stay here?
Actually, when I started development, software job was not a lucrative job. My first job offer was 4,000 rupees per month. Whether you believe it or not. Okay,
Wow. Okay.
so that was the state of IT at that point. It was seen as a back office thing, not seen something that's actually a business enabler like it is at this point. Developers are not highly regarded, right? So currently, full stack developers, polyglot developers, back end, front end UI developers, data engineers. You got so many roles, DevOps. When I was doing my bachelor's, it was not a very highly sought after role. That is number one. Two is particularly the year when which I actually entered college. So the way that so I did my bachelor's in Venkateshwara College of Engineering, and at the end of the first year, you need to make a choice to which stream you're going to go. So I got it through DOT, so not through management quota. So when I went through DOT, we had 1 year, and at the end of the year, they'll ask us what your interest is. So our maths HOD, he's a relatively old person, he's an awesome gentleman. All of us do. So he actually was sitting at the table, and I was going, and friends were there behind me, sir, of course. But he said, Satya, this is a great course, computer engineering. Do you want to take it, computer science and engineering? I had no this one because I loved software already. For me, it was a no-brainer. So I said, yeah, I'll take this. And we didn't have IT at that time. It was only computer science and engineering. The rest of my classmates chose core because at that time, core was the one that was most sought after, electronics, mechanical, that type of stuff. So I was actually going against it. And, it is just a destiny that, our industry took off. But I loved it, so I did it. And in my third year, when my prof actually asked us, so one of the profs, his name is Pattabhiraman, he asked us in class, so how many of you know what you're going to do? Three of us put our hands up. None of us actually did what we said we would do. My father had a granite business. So I said, yeah, I'm going to do, I'll probably follow in my dad's footsteps. He'll need help. But my passion towards software was so high that my dad said, no, you go pursue your dream. It's okay. You don't need to, carry on doing the same business I did. So that way he was a great dad. So Incidentally, none of the other two guys also did what they said they would do. The others kind of were like clueless. They said, yeah, whatever comes our way, we'll figure it out. So we keep going along. It was a good life lesson as well. So, and then did
Wow.
my master's and stuff. So,
Being granite, industry to actual retail industry and tech industry, is it? Wow, nice.
yeah.
So, what was the first job after Venkateshwara that you did decide?
So after Venkateshwar, I went for my master's in Cincinnati. Again, computer engineering is what I specialized in there. And after that, I incidentally came back to Cognizant and worked here. I did not want to work in US. So I came back here, worked in Cognizant. Cognizant was kind enough to say, they actually asked me again, it was not a very sought after industry at that point still. Y2K changed all of it. But until then, Cognizant interviews were kind of like Google interviews at this point in time, right? So extremely difficult to crack. I was employee number 134 or 175, something like that. I forget my exact number, but it was something in the hundreds. And Cognizant, when I got through, they asked me, where do you want to work? And I said, I do not want to actually take like a VB and build an application on top. I want to actually create the product. Incidentally, there was an R&D division in Cognizant at that time that was building a product. So we built one of the first workflow engines at that point. So now when you talk about a workflow system or when you talk about any business process management engine, it's like, so what? I mean, there are tons of it already. Got to realize that at that time, client server computing was state of the art. Internet had just been invented. Okay, so seriously, I'm not kidding. So when I did my master's is when www came out. Building a web page was cutting edge. And we are building a workflow product.
So, what happened to that product, Sat? I mean, I'm curious on that.
So I think Cognizant implemented it at a couple of customers, the solution at a couple of customers, but I do not believe they actually took it forward. I worked on two products there. This was one of them, and Y2K was the other. Y2K took off crazily, so I think all the focus went off on Y2K. We built it in a very interesting manner. So then, rather than just figuring out various patterns in the code, we actually built a compiler. So it'll actually compile the code. And then we'll search for some patterns and then we'll form a graph essentially of connected variables.
Okay.
Even if you make a function call and you don't name the variable correctly, it will still figure out that it's a date.
Wow.
So it actually builds a simple table of sorts. So that's for tech geeks that are listening. You would be able to understand it and appreciate it. So we built a virtual symbol table that could then spit out here are the places where there are potential problems in the code.
Very nice. And when did you move? When did you get into the specialization of healthcare or domain specialization? Because in early 2000, we were all churning out programs, projects. Literally, we were not even thinking about which domain are you really looking at, and domain became like an afterthought, not really the first one, right? When did you become specialized in a specific domain set?
So I think Diamond Cluster, which was my job after Cognizant. After Cognizant, I joined Diamond Cluster. Huge shift again. In Cognizant, I was a developer through and through. When I moved to Diamond Cluster, it was a strategy consulting engagement. So we had to pick up domain. There is no other go. So all you're doing is understanding the domain and figuring out the tech landscape of customers and trying to figure out is it aligned with the vision. What else needs to be done to make sure that tech can actually ramp up to meet business needs. And that gave a wonderful grounding. So I struggled in the initial year and a half because upbringing was not like that, right? I mean, we didn't use the thing that way. But thanks to Diamond for persevering with my nonsense for a year and a half till I became up to speed in strategy consulting. And I stayed in Diamond for about 5.5 years before coming back to India. Through Cognizant, I went to US. So incidentally, after masters, came back to India. Was in Cognizant for 3.5, 4 years, and then after that went back to US for a year. with Cognizant, which is where I actually ran into Diamond Cluster. So my last engagement with Cognizant was at a company called Dun& Bradstreet.
Okay.
So Diamond Cluster was putting together the world's first marketplace at that point in time, where businesses could buy and sell.
Okay.
And Dun& Bradstreet used to provide rating for companies to know what is the credit worthiness of the customer of the company.
Okay.
So natural extension was, why don't you actually build a marketplace where people can buy and sell, and you make some commissions out of it. So it was an evolution from a business standpoint, and I actually built the decision engine. That's when I ran into a partner at Diamond. They loved the way that I was actually going about the work, so they said, "Why don't you come interview with us?" Interviewed with them, and then got the job offer. So that's
So
where I got into Diamond.
the listeners understand, right? These are very common decisions, right? You have to make. When an offer comes in, is this offer better than my current comfort zone? Literally, I mean, you've been in technology, you've done this, and Cognizant has also given this kind of a platform. What made you take the decision, that sometimes but if you look at back and you say, okay, this is the reason. Would you be able to pinpoint a few of them?
So I actually have a countless thought on it. I had joined Cognizant when, as I said, really early. And along with me, there were people from HR that joined. There were people, my colleagues joined from college. Now, same, different colleges, but still colleagues. We knew each other. We had only 7 engineering colleges at that time. So you kind of knew your batchmates. So, unlike now, where there are like 500 colleges. But, and just talking about the ones in and around Chennai. Right. So there were about 6, 7 colleges, and we had all joined together. If I had stayed in Cognizant, financially, I would be way better off looking back at my journey. Right. So switching, it helped a lot in terms of gaining different types of experiences. That was one of the things I was looking for when I was actually switching. But financially, I think if I had stayed back in Cognizant, probably would have retired by now. So just to, I'm not kidding, right? So the HR guy who joined along with me used to run supply chain at Cognizant. I was actually on their fast track program as well. And the person who, no, this person who left, who used to run the supply chain, pretty handsome salary package in crores, right? So it's not even in 2 crores, multiple crores. That was the salary package without the stocks, and Cognizant stocks just went through the roof. So and I met him about 3, 4 years back. He had just left Cognizant at that point. So we actually built a product for him. So we still stayed in connect and stayed in touch and so on. So we built a product for him.
Some decisions are 2020, right? It helps sometimes to say, okay, this is a right decision or a not so great decision. I think experience teaches you better, right? Totally.
Absolutely, yes. So since you asked about switching or not, right, and this is something I tell our people as well. If you're sitting on the cone of a rocket at this point, at least for the foreseeable future, next 10, 15 years, you know that it is going to keep taking off, right? So I mean, there's no slowdown in terms of tech. So there will be business cycles, but still there's no slowdown from a tech standpoint. You're going to be building software tech for some time. So at least this generation, definitely, you don't need to be worried from a financial standpoint. You have that security. We did not have that security. I didn't know when I was getting into tech that it's going to take off. We got lucky. But you have the luxury that you know that you are going to be financially well off. Whichever place you started doesn't matter. You started 3 lakhs out of college, started 7 lakhs, you started 15 lakhs out of college, it really doesn't matter. Each one of people are going to be well off. So what matters? What is the impact you want to leave behind? How good of a software developer are you going to be? How good of a team player are you going to be? What are you going to leave behind? That is more important. And this is something I tell people. So when you talk about switching jobs, I didn't have, hopefully this is some level of maturity, or at least I would like to think so, but I didn't have it at that point in time. And that's something that I would like to pass on to other folks. So this is one of the reasons these talks we have within our company where I tell them, I actually ask them to open Excel, put in your salary, do a 10 to 12% industry average in terms of increase. So we do slightly higher, but let's say that's your industry average, meeting inflation. Look at what your salary is going to be 15 years down the line. So would you still consider money as your primary criteria, or is your view changing? I literally make people do this. So
Makes sense, right? See, when you look at yourself, right, and as to how much are you learning, are you investing in your own career? And in the end of the day, are you happy doing what you are doing,
exactly,
right? I think, and continuously learning keeps you that sense of adrenaline rush to make it happen.
absolutely.
I think
So
that's
I
what
spoke about the
keeps you.
financial part,
Mm.
but this experience I would never trade it, right? So going through Diamond, going through Wipro after that, and then to ThoughtWorks, running Ajira, knows running CASA. And actually, we have just restarted our services part as well. Bootstrap, so we need to have cash coming in. So we restarted services as well. I would not trade this for anything else. So it's such an awesome learning experience. Every day you learn.
Yeah. So, what are those parameters that you've used, Sat? If you think about those moves that you've done, right? Being, in ThoughtWorks when we met. You were the head of Chennai office. In addition to that, you're having your own domain space, right, in retail. And you used to publish papers on behalf of ThoughtWorks. That was a very, very cool thing. Yeah, running those domain sessions and everything, right? And then taking a plunge that no, I am going to have my own startup, and making it on my own. So, what are those decision parameters that it takes?
I would love to say it was all planned. It actually wasn't. So when I was a year or two into ThoughtWorks, I thought I would actually retire. I loved the company. I mean, I loved the culture that was built. So I actually thought I'd retire there. Right. So, but certain events happened, about 4.5 years in, where we are not aligned in terms of thought process. So I was like, yeah, maybe it's time to go build my own thing. Right. So, because so I don't want to sound haughty when I say this, but at the junior level, the focus is more on your own learning and how you progress through the career. As you become more senior, it's what you want to pass on and what you want to leave behind. And there, the vision of the company, what's actually happening, and so on, that's becomes a lot more, important, from a personal standpoint. And when the thoughts don't match, then it's the right time to move on. And it was a point where the thoughts did not match. By the way, ThoughtWorks is doing excellent. Right? I still have great regards for the company. So please don't take it negatively that I'm dissing about ThoughtWorks. I'm not. It's an awesome company. I still have a lot of friends there, and we play AOE together or during weekends.
Of course, being a fellow thought worker, I love the company. It has given literally wind under my wings in terms of saying, okay, being self-reliant, being able to do things on your own, and just enjoy the ride of it, right? I think it's also a matter of can I do more with my time? And I think what you said about impact, right? It's about legacy. Are you able to make higher value for your time? And that is very, very personal choice. It's not about the company, it's about you. And
Exactly.
I think very, very well said, Ajit. So Ajira was born in 2015. So
Yes,
in
15 January.
Okay, all right. So from there, right, what are some of the being a CEO of the firm, being a founding member, what are some of the struggles that you've had or the moral dilemmas that nobody teaches you in college, right?
First off, you have to be crazy to be a entrepreneur, a bootstrapped entrepreneur. Okay, so let me get out of the way. It is not as sexy as people make it out to be. There is a lot of struggle. If you're not passionate, please don't do it. Right. So if you don't love the risk as well of doing it, that's why you need to be a little bit crazy because it is a lot of risk. That being said, there's nothing like that, right? The second thing is in terms of moral dilemma. So before I get to any moral dilemma type of questions, um, there is a particular mindset, I think, that goes along with it. Let me try and explain it with through some examples, right? So my partner and I, we conceptualize Ajira sitting in Mangalambika tea stall. Literal tea. People talk about starters being born out of a tea shop, right?
Okay.
People typically say Starbucks. Here it was Mangalambika in West Mamana. Okay. So that's where the concept came. It got firmed up in a single, I think it was a 4 by 6 space conference room, right? So we had rented out a conference room, and again, one of my friend companies, they were kind enough to lend it. So we used that room to do interviews, figure out how right from what the salary structures are going to be like to what are we going to deliver to customers. So all kinds of stuff that goes on, right? So we actually conceptualized. So it took us about a month and a half while we were hunting for customers. A very interesting story happened, which is why I said you need to be crazy, you also need to have a lot of grit. So when one of my colleagues, when I had worked earlier, he was a salesperson out of Canada. He had promised $1 million project, okay, to start off with,
Okay.
and we spoke to the customer as well. Customer was very happy, so we built a prototype for them. Customer was very happy with the prototype. He was like, "Wow, you guys sitting, whatever, 10,000 miles away, you could actually understand what my needs are and build it out." There are two people who were gray hair, so naturally there was some understanding of the problem, and we were able to put together a decent solution. And we did this with an outsourced team. We didn't have a team at that time, right? So it was hardly a month since we started. So we didn't have a team at that time. So we built it with an outsourced team, two developers essentially. We built it on Rails and React, and give it back to the customer for the prototype part. Customer was very happy. They paid for the prototype as well. And the project was supposed to start by Jan. So this was in December. Right? They said we are going off for holidays. By November, we finished the prototype, demoed it, they loaded, made the payment. They said by Jan we'll actually start off. So my daughter does competition sports, so she was in a sporting competition nationals in January. So until December end, I was relatively okay. But first week of Jan, no news from them. I kept calling this person up once every few days, trying to figure out, are we actually on track? Are we moving forward? In a nice manner, right? So kind of have discussions around, what does the team size going to look like? What are we going to build first? Those types of conversations. So it doesn't seem like you're pestering the customer. And by mid-Jan, that's when our competitions are in full swing. I clearly knew that this was not going to happen because there was no firm commitment from the customer that this is when we'll start. And we had rolled out offers, assuming that we are actually going to start at that point in time.
Oh my God. Okay.
Right. So as soon as so her competitions were in Virar in Maharashtra essentially. So as soon as I got back, the very next day or the same day actually, we came here in the morning, and the same day started reaching out to people that I knew within Chennai area, right? So CEOs, CIOs, that type of stuff. People had earlier worked along with us in ThoughtWorks and so on. And incidentally, so I thought maybe about there'll be 4, 5. Let me reach out to 4, 5 people. We'll get a project and then we'll start off. Incidentally, all 5 of them said we'll give you a project. Again, God's
Wow.
grace.
Ah.
We had 5 people that were hired. On the first day, every person that got hired got it to a different customer. We started the project. So that was again a call that you had to take. Should he say no? Should he say yes? Should he just focus on a single project? Should he go with all 5? I come from a middle class background. So I said, let me see if I can amortize the risk. So I do all 5, but with one person each. We said, we'll not do these pieces. Let somebody else do it. We'll just do this one. So we did all 5. And each one of those accounts kept growing for us. I don't want to take customer names on this one, but thanks to every one of those customers, Ajira came to a 40-member team of really strong technologists, and almost every one of them stayed with us for about 3 years, 4 years, almost through the entire ride. And we built really great products for them. So luckily, there were also companies that could build multiple products. We stayed with them for quite a while and helped build, their own products.
Wow. That must have been a very difficult conversation, right? In terms of saying, okay, uh, I mean, how do I tap my network? And it's literally like,
Yeah.
you're in the position of despair, where you have to shell out salaries, you have to do that, right?
Actually, that was not a position of despair. At the end of the first year, so at that time we had 7 people in our company. It means 6 people, actually 5 developers, and then my co-founder and myself. Right? So there were 7 of us. 4 people left on the same day.
Left
Literally,
the firm?
left on the same day. So one person, when he joined, he was very fair. He said, "I'll stay with you for a year. If you can send me, to a foreign country, then I'm good with it. Otherwise, I'll find my own." So then we brought him in, knowing that it's a year, but we had to start at some place. So there are some of these short-term things that you would make. The other 3 was completely unexpected. So one fine day, they said, "No, we are going to go build our own product bike." So,
Okay.
so we were down to one person, actually 2 people that were left. Sorry, it was 6 plus 2, 8 were there. So we left with 2 people, both juniors.
Okay.
Incidentally, and that's where I think God's hand, God also has a guiding hand. Incidentally, at the same point in time, 4, 5 more people came and joined us from an earlier network, ThoughtWorks network.
Okay.
So they said, yeah. So I had been having conversations with all of them, but they said, "I'll come and join at this point." So we didn't see too much of a hit. So we could actually, continue working and so on. So, but at that point, before I knew that these 5 were going to come and join, those 2, 3 weeks, it was very harrowing because you have to restart. And you also you have a customer promise as well that you need to meet.
Correct. And to large extent, right, being in a startup, no matter how long your commitment is to stay back, right, it may or may not work out. You
Yeah.
say, okay, it could be a 2-month notice period or a 3-month notice period, but ability to enforce it is that much harder.
It's just not there. Absolutely. It's just not there. Even now for us, we don't have too much of an ability. It always goes by relationships. We ask, "Can you stay back? Can you help get this done? Make a smoother transition." So,
So, having worked in large organization and having that wherewithal of, such structure, right, be it legal department, be it, oiled HR machines and everything. Being in a startup, bootstrapped, how did you skill yourself that? I think while I know from a technology, from a domain, you are already having that. But as an entrepreneur, how did you skill yourself?
actually, I think I got lucky through my entire, though I worked with larger companies. Now Cognizant is larger. At that time, it wasn't. So we were still, and that too, I was in a very nascent division. So it was like being in a startup for the most part. And then moving on to Diamond Cluster, it was completely out of my comfort zone just to understand what they were doing. It took me a year and a half or two. So, that was more of just kept learning a bunch of stuff around business aligned tech strategy. And then moving on to Wipro, again, it wasn't a large organizational team that I was doing. So it was a very niche team that I was part of. It was like a SWAT team within Wipro Retail, where we used to jump in where there were large deals or there were fires to be put out. And we used to go help in those divisions. The last 2 years, I had a management role at Wipro where I was heading up a sub vertical, basically, of retail. Um, and then on to ThoughtWorks. Well, ThoughtWorks, you can't actually say management is management in the traditional sense of the word. It's more like a startup place. So that's why I think all through life, it just prepared me to be running a startup rather than having to make a large transition as such. But all said and done, being an employee, being an entrepreneur, two different things. You just need to learn on the job. There's nothing you need to do it. I mean, you should know the rules. So
I think it gets you ready for such a thing, right? The plunge and make it happen.
absolutely.
And
Because you're not responsible only for yourself or the salary, right? You're responsible for another X number of people's salary, depending on the size of your organization. So everything you do, you got to plan. So there's no getting around it.
I know I have so many other questions. I wish, as in the interest of time, I want to ask one thing, that what are some of the, pearls of wisdom, if you will, nuggets that you would like to give for our listeners?
So first off, before taking an entrepreneurial plunge, I know a lot of it sounds sexy. Figure out whether you're in for the ride or not. You get on the pedal, it's very difficult to get off. So, and there are, you're also putting a lot of other people's careers at stake as well. So you just need to make sure that you are ready for the plunge first. The second thing is you need an awesome amount of grit. You cannot undermine it at all. You'll run into challenges that you even haven't thought of or contemplated and so on. Right? So, those are things that will keep coming up. You just need to be able to have the grit to handle them. You'll just not think that this could happen at this point, and it will happen. Okay, so Murphy's law, 80% of the time it will happen. 20% of the time you'll have a good rate. So there's a saying that you are oscillating between happiness and despair, or elation and despair. It's actually true, but you don't get despair basically. I mean, you just fight through it. So you need to have that grit. That is the second biggest thing. The third thing is whatever you do, figure out whether people will actually pay money for it. Otherwise, don't even do it. The fourth is don't build something where you're reliant. As a startup, we talk a lot about culture, having people together, that type of stuff. All that is important. But you need to make sure that you build an organization which will last without the people that are actually there. That is one of the learnings. Right. So when four people leave you and all the ones are seniors and you're left with two juniors, you learn that you need to put a system in place so that even if the seniors move, your business will not suffer. You kind of get it covered. So, all this, I mean, they left for a good reason. They wanted to go build a product, right? So it's going to help their own career. But, at the end of the day, your business suffers too. So, from a business standpoint, you got to make sure that don't be over reliant on any specific aspect. You need to build that fault tolerance within your own organization. So, those are the things that I would say that are most applicable for startups, I guess. Scale and so on
Wow.
is much later.
Thank you so much. That I think it's awesome to hear actual experience coming out, right, in terms of having a war wound. You say it's not about the war itself. It's about, the journey, what you learn through the journey. I think it's awesome, Sat. I think thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. And looking forward to collaborating more with you, Sat. And wish you the best.
Sure,
All
thanks,
the best to
thanks,
Startup.
Gayatri. Thank you, and all the best to the entrepreneurs that are kind of gearing up.
Definitely.
We thank Siddharth for the music and Anita for promoting the Software People stories.
If you like this episode,
Please subscribe on your favorite podcast client.
And spread the word in your network.
if you'd like to share your story,
Contact us at podcasts@pm-powerconsulting.com.